News in our hour. I've just been handed a new Washington Post report story breaking on the Mueller endgame. Justice Department preparing for Mueller report. The Post puts the timeline at, quote, the coming days, a significant advancement of a story we've been covering all evening. And I want to turn to two experts who followed the probe a lot for us, Jason Johnson from TheRoot.com and a professor of political science, and former federal prosecutor John Flannery. We just got this from the Washington Post. It echoes some of the reporting we had in the top of our hour, but does advance it, John. They put the number at days. You could say, who knows? But they also have interesting details. One, the Post reported tonight, moments ago, that Trump's inner circle has, quote, palpable concern that there could be damaging material in the Mueller report that's not technically illegal, but is, quote, damaging to him. And two, reports that people who are on Mueller's team, top prosecutors, have reportedly begun talking to old bosses about future jobs when they leave this office, an office known to avoid leaks, but that's a conversation that sooner or later people would have. Your reaction, John?
Well, my reaction is when the White House is saying that these are technical crimes, that we shouldn't give it much weight. The fact that they're concerned is probably encouraging to those of us who think that what we know publicly is so outrageous and of criminal conduct and misconduct and abuses of power, that we would hope that the report says something like that and perhaps does consider a recommendation of indictment, because how political impeachment would be. And I am concerned that Barr, who was handpicked by the president, may muzzle whatever is prepared in the days ahead. So I think these are pretty serious concerns, and how the White House performs under this pressure will tell us what kind of crisis in government we have.
Jason, as a student of Washington, this is starting to feel like something is coming.
Yeah. Yes. Look, this is... Winter is coming, the law is coming, Mueller is coming, however you put it. This is the end game everybody's been waiting for. And look, I understand that Mueller is apolitical, he just has a job to do, but I always thought that the results of the 2018 election would determine how quickly we got this report. Between Democrats being in a position where they can do more investigations in the House and the fact that you now have Bob Barr, who's made it abundantly clear through numerous and sundry statements that he would try to do whatever he could to protect the president, and that he questioned Mueller's investigation, I'm not surprised they're trying to put this out quickly. They need to strike while the iron's hot if they want to have any chance of investigating or statewide investigations of some of the things in the report.
John, if this reporting from the Washington Post tonight is correct, and it echoes the other evidence I already presented, how do you interpret the inference that this report and probe would be concluding without an in-person interview with the president, who is so central to many of the alleged and confessed crimes under discussion?
Well, the hypothetical that you would test here is, were the answers he gave contradicted by the evidence that was collected by the special counsel? In other words, did he say one thing about the June 9th meeting that they can contradict, or about the cover-up of the June 9th meeting on behalf of Don Jr.? And the fact that some people weren't called, that follows a pattern. Example, Roger Stone, that a person who was targeted in the end, indicted and so forth, wasn't necessarily spoken to by the special counsel. So I think this is going to be significant. We can guess about it, but I've always thought that this was a three-part story, and the first two parts were how they set up the system that the incumbent in the Oval Office used to get elected improperly, illegally, corruptly. And what he's done since he's been in office has been to obstruct the investigation at every turn. I don't see how those two subjects don't get discussed. And past presidents who found themselves in trouble, there are cartoons and satires about it. They found that the cover-up was always worse than the underlying crime in terms of the direct evidence they had to prove what they had done corruptly, illegally, and so forth.
And Jason, what is the environment in the House? When we talk about the Mueller report under the rules, it's only confidential. But what's been intimated, and what the Post is signaling out without directly reporting tonight, is that there seems to be a joint plan to get something that would be going to the Congress in an unclassified version that goes to the public. How will the House take this?
Oh, it'll be huge. You will have every single Democrat in every single state that Trump has ever done a business in investigating this document to see what they can give local and state prosecutors. This is absolutely huge. And Ari, as we were sort of talking about before, this larger idea of whether or not the president can be indicted, because that's really the next step after whatever of this report gets released. That's why he wanted Gorsuch. That's why he wanted Kavanaugh, because clearly people in the Trump administration believe that, you know, like they've been lying all along saying, hey, the president can never get arrested for nothing domestic. We don't have anything to worry about. But if they weren't worried about that, they wouldn't have been so obsessed with putting somebody like Brett Kavanaugh on the bench. So I think that Mueller will make at least one suggestion for some crimes being worthy of indictment. The Democrats in the House will argue for that. And then this is going to be a huge legal battle that could run all the way to 2020.
Well, and when you refer, both of you, to what the Democrats have said about obstruction, there are many prominent Democrats, including chairs of key committees, who are of the view that the president has effectively obstructed and witness tampered in public. So they're already on the record on that. The ending of the Mueller report is at the minimum a public inflection point for something that, as we reported earlier tonight, has traditionally been dealt with regard to the president's conduct in the House first, not in a grand jury. John and Jason, thanks to both of you on the breaking story.
Thanks, Ari.
Straight ahead, we have a lot more. My original fact-check report on why Donald Trump's emergency is based on falsehoods that you should know the details about.